Stop overthinking, start creating, and trust the process. Let me tell you a little story about how I got my first song out there in the infosphere, published, and how I went from a little kernel of an idea to a finished product through the process of composition, arrangement, production, recording, mixing, mastering, and publishing. Now, if you were following in my last video, I recently got my first couple of songs published and out into the world. And what I loved about the first song that I put up was how the process really took over and informed how I presented the song and my treatment of it, and the steps that came up that I couldn't have planned for, and a bunch of happy accidents that really made the song come together, I think, in my view. And so I wanted to talk about how, if you're producing your own music and you're trying to publish it, and how you can really get into analysis paralysis, and you're overthinking it, and you're trying to plan everything from the beginning. But in fact, what normally happens is as you go through the process, things will come up that will present the solutions for you. And that's part of the creative process, and that's what I wanted to talk about today. And we're going to use my first song that I put up as an example because I think it's a good one. Let's start by having a listen to this.
Well, little Bo Peep went to school one day, and a little old sheep followed her to school that way. And it made
What you're listening to is a rough cut, a spitball version, a brainstorm version that I threw out one day. I was jamming with a friend, Mike. The singing's out of tune. The song is horrible. It's just got a little inkling of an idea going there. But I kind of like the lyrics. They were kind of clever, and I thought it was funny, and I thought it would come together as a tune. And I went through a couple of stages of sort of deciding, let's do this and let's try this. And Mike and I played it a couple of times on stage at an open mic, and it kind of went over okay. But the final version is nothing like the original. So I wanted to go through that and show you a couple of things that came up, and this might give you some inspiration to not worry too much about what you're doing, but you got to try things out. And sometimes you have to understand you're going to get into the process and you're going to throw a bunch of things out and you'll keep whatever works. And sometimes what works is things that you never expected. Now, one of those happy accidents was technology. I know you Gen Zs, you just don't know what it was like back in the day. The struggle was real. You had people walking around with cassettes that they recorded on ghetto blasters, and you're trying to make a demo and you want to put a song together. And making a demo was expensive. You had to go into a studio, and maybe you needed to hire some musicians, especially if you were a writer and you're just composing things your own. And if you were lucky, you had a band and everybody would put their money into it and all of that. And that still goes on, of course. But if your goal is like mine, you want to get a representative version of your song that you can show to people, the technology is working for you. And so here it is, right there, playable to anybody. Just a few years ago, that would be a monumental task. And then once you've got it, what do you do with your demo, right? You got to go and hustle and point it out to people. And I mean, you still got to do all of that, but at least you have something here that you can quickly and easily display to people. And just a few years ago, that seemed very impossible. So as much as we complain about things like Spotify and Apple Music and everything that people say about that, I think is somewhat true. But on the other side of it, it is a great technology for just being able to be a small producer, wanting to work out your songs, meet with other musicians, to network, and have something out there that is easily and readily accessible over a wide area. So that's distribution, right? And that is a great new thing. Now, another aspect of technology that you can see is album art and graphics. That's a whole other proponent of distributing and putting something out. You need something visual because everything's multimedia these days. And as you can see, I have produced some stuff using AI. I'm not a big supporter of AI generated stuff. I think a lot of it is crap and it's slop, like everybody says. At the same time, I can't produce this myself. It's too much work and too much money. If I wanted to create a representative album art or song tile here that I can put out with the song, it would be exorbitantly expensive and prohibitively laborious. So I can put together something that at least works. I wanted to present something that suggested the narrative of the song and give a sense of the vibe and the ethos of it. Now, I used Adobe Firefly for this because it's one that I'm familiar with, but it was able to be done in a reasonable amount of time with a reasonable amount of work, and I never would have been able to do that without it. If your goal, like mine, is to just put your songs together, make a representative version of it that people can listen to, that you can present, then the technology is there to make that happen. Let's jump over to Logic for a sec, and we'll go back to this idea of trusting the process, because a number of things happened in the recording of this song that I couldn't have planned. As part of the process, after I had laid out the basis of the song and I was happy with the arrangement, what I do is I take it off Logic and I bounce it down and I listen to it for a couple of days. And what I found was the song was really dragging. There was just something missing there that really wasn't holding the tune together. So that's what got me into the horns. I never heard horns in the song before until I actually got far enough into the process for me to go, oh yeah, I think we need something here. And I added this horn section, which I think punches up the area a bit. And I wanted to separate the first verse from the second verse, so the horns sort of come in at the second verse to break that up and change the dynamic a bit. Another thing that came up in this song was, as I was listening to it, I felt it was losing its original sort of vibe. I sort of heard this song as kind of a fun, quirky kind of tune you might hear at a dive bar or a blues bar somewhere with a good band that was really just having a good time with something. And I felt like I really wasn't achieving that. So I fiddled around with the drum track a bit to give it more of a live sound. And then I added these callback sections. Where are they here? And all I did was I just played the song through as I had it, and I started vamping over it, just improvising. And I added these little callback sections, like the band was sort of calling back to the singer based on the vocals. And that was to really give it that kind of improv vibe that the band was just having fun. And that was sort of the nature of the tune. And I was really trying to create that ethos. And the reason I was doing that is the song's very tongue-in-cheek, right? It's a funny song, it's quirky, it's not really meant to be taken seriously, but I think it's got a good central character, and it's got a funny little narrative, and a kind of a hooky chorus, but it really is sort of just a jump-up blues kind of tune, and I just wanted that to come out in the recording. So as part of the process, it was a lot of just sort of listening to the song and thinking, oh, what's missing here? Why do I feel like this isn't holding together? What can I do here? And that part of the process, I couldn't have planned. If I wrote this out and thought, I want to do this, I never would have thought of those things. They sort of get suggested to you as you go through the process. Now, obviously, I want the chorus part to stand out, and so I created a chorus, and you need a chorus here. And how do I do that? Well, I don't have a group of musicians hanging around me who I can just call in. I guess I could call my friends. I'm sure they would come over, but that's a lot of work and a lot of organization. So what I did was I just recorded myself vamping over the chorus in a couple of different ways, and then I selected the one that I thought sounded best, and then I used a bunch of different voices of my own with different microphones, because I can't have the chorus conflicting with the main vocals because it's the same person, and they'll cancel each other out and cause those kinds of problems. So, and then I was able to mix it in. I don't think the mix on this worked out exactly as well as it could have. I was having a little trouble making it work. I'm sure it would have worked better if I had used different people, but I got it to the point where I was more or less happy with it. The point of this in the process was I didn't know what the backing vocals were going to be or where they were going to be positioned. What I did was I just let the song play through and I just improvised over top of it. And then I was like, oh yeah, I think that sounds good. And then I sort of drill down on that one idea and then delete the rest. Another happy accident that happened has to do with the vocals. I had the vocals done and I thought they sounded pretty good. But then one day I had a cold and a sore throat. And you know how your voice sounds when you have a sore throat? So rather than stay in bed and convalesce, I jumped into the studio here and I redid all the vocals because I knew that my raspy voice was going to suit the vibe of this song really well. And it all came together pretty easily. Now, again, so that's one of those things that you can't account for, but you strike while the iron's hot. So some things you're going to do are going to come together really well and easily and seem effortless, and other parts of your song are going to seem laborious and tedious, and you're not quite sure if it's going to work. But that's just the nature of the process. You keep hammering away at it until the song sounds the way you want it to. Another thing that came up in the process of putting this song together has to do with the guitars, and specifically the opening riff. Now, I started with just a very typical 12-bar blues kind of descending line just to open the song, but after listening to it a number of times, I realized it was a bit of a cliche and it was a little boring, and I wanted to do a little something just to bring up the very beginning of the song in a different way. So I fiddled around with the riffs a little bit, and I came up with two lines that sort of play off of each other. And one is the original descending riff, and then the other is an ascending riff that lands at the same point. Right, and they're landing there. And I thought that was just enough. It kept it simple, but again, it was a good example of the process feeding your creativity. And I couldn't have planned that. It was just something that came up while I was working through the song. And that's why you trust the process. Okay, a couple of other things came up in the rhythm section here, and that was adding the claps and the finger snaps, which I recorded analog. And I just did that myself by laying over the tracks and using different microphones so they sounded different in different positions. But I did that because it became clear to me as I was listening that I needed something a little more to separate the chorus from the verse part and bring that sound up a bit. But I didn't want to overdo it, and I just wanted something that sounded still natural to keep that kind of small blues bar kind of sound that a group of musicians could do, or maybe even the audience. And it added some snap to the chorus that I kind of liked in the end, so I kept it and it worked in the mix. With the drum sounds, I went back and forth with a lot of different arrangements, as I always do, but I ended up with a small room jazz kit kind of sound that I thought kept the ethos and that kind of analog vibe of the tune. Now I know what you're thinking. Aren't you going to play this damn song for us? And the answer is no. I'm going to entreat you, ask you, cajole you to go and find it because I put all this work into the tune and I'm hoping somebody will listen to it, please. The name of the album is The Fancy Ticklers, and the song is called Little Bo Peep Rocks the Schoolhouse Again. And I think you'll find it's a fun tune to listen to. Look for it at Spotify, YouTube Music, Apple Music. I think it's even at Amazon Music, iTunes. You can find it all over the place, and that's the goal. If you do that, you will also notice the next thing we're going to talk about is song number 2, which is Because I'm Canadian and it's hockey season and the Women's Hockey League has just opened their season and we love and support them. So this is a love song for the Ice Age. Get it? Ice Age? Ha ha ha. If you are not Canadian, there are a lot of references in there that you are not going to get immediately. But there's some French in there, and you can pick up some good Quebecois French phrases. So check that out to prep for the next video and come back the next time because that's what we're going to be talking about, but from a different perspective because it's a new song and a whole new day of musical production. So do all the liking and subscribing that is necessary to keep this channel going. And I want to thank you for joining today. We'll see you next time.